What happens when Britain's most controversial royal sits down with television's most unfiltered host? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry faces off against Sharon Osbourne in what started as a seemingly cordial interview but quickly descended into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The tension was palpable from the moment Harry walked onto the View set, but nobody could have predicted the nuclear meltdown that was about to occur. Last night's episode of The View was supposed to be a platform for Prince Harry to discuss his latest charitable endeavors and upcoming projects. The producers had briefed the panel that this would be a straightforward conversation about his work with veterans and mental health advocacy. What they got instead was a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral completely out of control when Sharon Osbourne decides she's had enough of what she perceives as royal hypocrisy. The atmosphere backstage was already charged before filming began. Sources close to the production revealed that Harry's team had submitted an extensive list of topics that were considered off-limits, including any discussion of his father, King Charles, his stepmother, Queen Camilla, or the ongoing rift with his brother, Prince William. They had also specifically requested that there be no mention of the Netflix documentary series or the tell-all memoir that had caused such controversy. Sharon, however, had other plans entirely. As Harry settled into his seat, adjusting his tie with what appeared to be nervous energy, Sharon's eyes never left him. Her co-hosts exchanged subtle glances, sensing the electricity in the air. The show's opening segment proceeded normally, with pleasantries exchanged and Harry discussing his foundation's work with wounded veterans. His responses were measured, diplomatic, and carefully crafted, exactly what his media training had prepared him for. But Sharon was watching, waiting, and calculating her next move with the precision of a seasoned predator. "It's wonderful to hear about your charity work, Harry," Sharon began, her voice deceptively sweet, as she leaned forward in her chair. "Really admirable, but I have to ask, and I think our viewers deserve to know, how do you reconcile this public image of caring for veterans with what many see as your complete abandonment of your own military family back home?" The question hit like a thunderbolt. Harry's carefully composed expression flickered for just a moment, revealing a flash of irritation before he regained his composure. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats, recognizing that Sharon had just crossed the line that Harry's team had so carefully drawn. But this was exactly what Sharon had been planning from the moment she learned about the interview. "I think that's quite an unfair characterization, Sharon," Harry replied, his British accent becoming more pronounced as his stress levels elevated. "My commitment to veterans has never wavered, regardless of geographical boundaries or family circumstances." Sharon's laugh was sharp and cutting. "Geographical boundaries? Family circumstances? That's quite the euphemism for turning your back on everything you once stood for, isn't it?" She shuffled through her notes with theatrical precision, as if she had been preparing for this moment for months. "Let me refresh your memory about some of those family circumstances you're so casually dismissing." The tension in the studio was becoming unbearable. Camera operators zoomed in on Harry's face, capturing every micro-expression as Sharon continued her relentless assault. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and his hands, which had been resting casually on the armrests of his chair, now gripped them with white-knuckled intensity. "You served your country with honor for 10 years, Sharon continued, her voice gaining momentum like a train building speed. "You worked alongside brave men and women who bled for the crown you've now decided to trash at every opportunity. These people looked up to you, respected you, followed you into battle. And now you're sitting here in a Hollywood studio cashing checks from Netflix while throwing those same institutions under the bus." Harry's media training was being put to the ultimate test. Every instinct told him to fight back, to defend himself against these accusations that cut to the very core of his identity. But he also knew that losing his temper on live television would only prove Sharon's point and provide her with exactly the kind of content she was clearly fishing for. "My service record speaks for itself," Harry said, his voice steady but with an underlying current of barely controlled anger. "I've never forgotten my brothers and sisters in arms, and I never will. What I have done is chosen to speak truth to power, something that apparently makes people very uncomfortable." Sharon pounced on this opening like a cat on a wounded bird. "Truth to power? Is that what we're calling it now?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she turned to face the audience, as if inviting them to witness this moment of royal delusion. "Let me tell you about truth, Harry. The truth is that you had everything, absolutely everything, handed to you on a silver platter, and you threw it all away because you couldn't handle a little criticism from the British press." The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Harry's composure finally began to crack, and for the first time since the interview began, genuine emotion flickered across his features. His breathing became slightly more shallow, and a muscle in his cheek began to twitch almost imperceptibly. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Harry said, his diplomatic mask finally beginning to slip. "You have no understanding of what my family went through, what my wife endured, or the impossible position we were put in by an institution that cares more about protecting its image than protecting the people who serve it." Sharon's eyes lit up with the satisfaction of someone who had just landed a perfect blow. She had successfully goaded Harry into abandoning his carefully rehearsed talking points and was now speaking from a place of raw emotion, exactly where she wanted him. "Your wife," Sharon repeated, her eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Oh, you mean the woman who married into the most privileged family on earth, and then spent the next few years complaining about how difficult her life was? The same woman who claimed the royal family was racist, while conveniently forgetting to mention any specific names or incidents that could actually be verified?" The studio fell into a deadly silence. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Harry's face had gone completely rigid, and his eyes had taken on a dangerous glint that suggested Sharon had just crossed a line from which there might be no return. But Sharon wasn't finished. She had tasted blood in the water. And, like any seasoned television predator, she was prepared to go in for the kill, regardless of the consequences that might follow. "Let's talk about privilege for a moment, shall we?" Sharon continued, her voice now carrying the full weight of her decades in the entertainment industry. "Because I think our viewers need to understand exactly what kind of privilege we're dealing with here. You were born into a life that billions of people could only dream of. Private jets, luxury homes, security details, the finest education money can buy. And yet somehow you've managed to paint yourself as the victim in this story." Harry's hands had now formed fists on the armrests of his chair, and his breathing had become noticeably more labored. The other hosts sat in stunned silence, realizing they were witnessing something that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. Even the studio audience, usually vocal and reactive, had fallen into an almost religious silence as they watched this royal meltdown unfold in real time. "Victim." Harry's voice cracked slightly as he spoke, betraying the emotional toll that Sharon's relentless assault was taking on him. "You think this is about playing the victim? This is about protecting my family from the same machine that killed my mother. This is about refusing to let history repeat itself while people like you sit in your ivory towers and judge situations you couldn't possibly understand." The mention of Princess Diana sent a visible shockwave through the studio. Sharon's expression shifted momentarily, as if she recognized that Harry had just raised the stakes to a level that could have serious consequences. But instead of backing down, she doubled down with the ruthlessness that had made her both famous and infamous throughout her career.